Hello and welcome to episode 66 of the Your Next Chapter podcast. This is Angela Raspis. Now, we're still in the midst of the Circle of Support series, really delving and diving into what it is, that combination, that recipe of things that allows women to feel buoyant, to remain buoyant in business and life in their next chapters. Now, we had a wee break last week, sorry about that, but I was actually hosting a retreat for my Next Chapter Circle Mastermind ladies in Pecolbin, which is a part of the Hunter Valley in New South Wales. So just couldn't get myself near a microphone. So my apologies, but we're back with a vengeance today. And I'm having a conversation with one of my own mastermind buddies, the gorgeous Karen Gordon, who's over in America, and I've been fortunate enough to be masterminding with for the last couple of years. So this is a really hearty conversation as we know each other so well. But Karen has such wisdom and insight to share. And as you know, I adore bringing stories out that I believe are going to inspire and empower you to take steps forward in your next chapter. Now, Karen, her previous chapter was a really interesting one because she was with one company for 25 years. She was an accountant and did some most amazing work there. But what happened? Well, after those 25 years ticked by, Karen found that she had changed. Does that sound familiar? The things that were inspiring and motivating her were really different to what they were when she first started. Now, the organisation she was working for had also changed, and so she hit this point where she felt deeply unhappy, but obviously so rooted in a past that had a real, a hold of her because it's what she knew. But she also knew that something needed to change. So what did she do? She got herself a business coach and started talking to that coach about other possibilities. And the cat was out of the bag when that coach said to her, "You really want to start your own business, don't you?" Well, Karen resisted that idea for a good couple of years because, like so many of us who had been in corporate, getting that regular paycheck, that regularity of income and certainty of what's around the corner is very attractive, and it can be hard to break. But she did. She realized that she couldn't, in her own words, I couldn't think my way out of this. I had to feel my way through it. And as a result, she has created an amazing creative. Here, I'm just grabbing these notes here because it's important to get this right. Now, she left the corporate world to launch a creative conference center that she's built so she would have an amazing space to bring her dreams to life. Now, this is about go where meetings matter. Now, you can imagine 25 years in corporate, Karen had been in a lot of meetings and many of them were not that exciting. And the space that you're in was just not conducive to the creativity that we often need when we're in those meetings. So she created the space that would change the way meetings are held. So she describes herself as a reformed corporate executive, an entrepreneur, and a coach. And as a bonus, once she created this space, she found a lot of other businesses were able to also discover how productive meetings could be when you've got the right environment. And speaking of that environment, Karen is obviously digging down in this conversation that we're having about, as I said at the beginning, how she keeps herself buoyant to business. What are the pieces, what are the ingredients in the recipe that really work for her? Because it can be very long hours when you're in the events world. I know, because I used to do them way back in my corporate world. Before I had my kids, I was in events and sponsorships and marketing for a large newspaper chain. And I know what it's like to run a lot of events and have those incredibly long hours. So buoyancy, self-care, incredibly important. So let's stop listening to me and let's jump into this conversation and find out all about the lovely Karen and how she keeps buoyant in her next chapter. I hope you really enjoy the interview. Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Raspis, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hello, hello, it's Angela Raspis and welcome back to the Your Next Chapter podcast. Thank you for joining me here today. And we have a treat. We have a very, very lovely colleague and friend from, and let me hope I pronounce this correctly, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Have I got the accent right? Her name's Karen Gordon. And she's already laughing at me. But we're friends who met online on one of those wonderful advantages of our online world that expands the opportunity for connection. We've been masterminding together with Liz Scully for the last couple of years and have built up such a friendship and support as a result of getting online every couple of weeks and seeing what's happening in our respective businesses. So I'm definitely a part of Karen's circle of support and vice versa, but we're going to dig a little deeper today. Karen, thank you so much for fitting me into your schedule.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
And I feel the same way. So what we're going to get into today is finding out how you keep yourself buoyant in business and life. This is all part of the Circle of Support series on the Your Next Chapter podcast. But before we dive into the things that work for you, I always love to get the context here and find out, how did your next chapter begin? Because I bet you there's some good stories behind there you can share with our listeners.
Yeah, there are. I remember, I'm going to take a little bit of a tangent, being in grad school and people were all like, oh, entrepreneurship's the next best thing. You got to do that. And I'm like, heck no, I love working for a big company. Why would I want to give that up? Well, that was in the mid-90s, and I loved my job, and I loved my job for much of my career, and I was with one company for over 25 years, which is unheard of these days, but I hired in for a career there, and I loved what I did. I was considered a high potential, a high pot, and they paid me to go to grad school, which is one of the reasons when I was there I was thinking, why would I want to do entrepreneurship? They're paying me to go to school. But somewhere along the way, I changed and the company changed, and I can't tell you when, but I can tell you that neither was wrong. They just didn't go in the same direction, and because of it, I became really, really unhappy in what I was doing, and I tried to turn the behemoth of a company in the direction I wanted to go, and as you can imagine, that didn't go so well, and it didn't feel very good either, coming in every day wishing things were different. So I was lucky enough to find a really great coach, and I can remember our first session when she was deep diving into what makes me happy, and she says, sounds to me like you want to start your own business. And I'm like, heck no, still in the same mindset. I can't give up that security. I get a paycheck no matter what, and this is, I just want to figure out how to be happier where I am. Well, give that about 12 weeks, and then I was designing what I was going to do, how I was going to lead my company. Now, it took me 2 more years to be able to do that, but when I exited, I had a plan in place for my new business, which was about to start, for the company to pay me to leave, and then luckily they hired me back 1 day a week as a consultant, which made my transition from corporate executive to solo entrepreneur much easier financially. So it started really with me being unhappy and realizing I used to bound out of bed, excited to go to work, and then realized I kept pulling the covers over my head and then reaching for support to figure out what to do differently.
Oh my goodness.
And fighting it.
And then resisting it. But we hear that a lot in conversations that I have with so many women, is that the ideas come up and you push them down and you push them to the side. And it's like, no, that doesn't fit who I am, or that sounds a bit scary, or whatever the case may be. But the little buggers keep coming back again and keep tapping you on the shoulder. I want your attention. Listen to me. This is the thing you're supposed to be doing. But what do you think was the cause things that were holding you back from taking the leap? Was it fear? Was it doubt? Was there other things that were in there? What sort of emotions were you experiencing?
Well, about half of my career, I'm an accountant by trade. So I was a corporate accountant when I started with the company. So I have a BS in accounting. So all that finance going, do you realize that you won't have money coming in and you won't get this and you won't get that? Yeah, the business might be a success, but there's risk there, and it was that risk averse. If I do nothing, if I don't change anything, I keep the money rolling in. I'm not happy, but money comes in. If I change something, there's no guarantees on anything. So it was that complete change of certainty. Some things I liked and some things I didn't, right? I loved having money. I didn't like being unhappy, to uncertainty in every aspect. But then I actually read a book called Uncertainty that made me look at uncertainty a different way, which was uncertainty could be fuel. It could fire me up to do things. And that's the coach I had. Once I decided to make the leap, I leapt, and it was not like feet first, it was head first. And she's like, I can't believe this is you doing this. I'm like, but once you jump, you can't walk back up.
No.
So as long as I'm in the free fall, I might as well go for it and enjoy it. But it was I don't want to say it was fear. It was, for me, there's a difference between risk and fear. Yeah. And it was a risk that I wasn't comfortable with, but once I decided that I needed to take it because the emotional cost of being unhappy was higher than the potential cost of the risk of it not working out financially.
So there was a weighing up there, but you hit that, it sounds as though you hit that tipping point where it's like suddenly the risk, as you said, just was not outweighed by the unhappiness. And I guess one of the biggest things that we have is we don't want to get to our, later on in life and wonder, what if I had, what if I'd leapt, what if I'd tried that, and to have those questions unanswered. So I love that description with that Uncertainty, the book, that you looked now that uncertainty could actually act as fuel as opposed to keeping you stuck. It could actually give you the energy to take the leap. That's a real great reframe. I think we need to put that book in the show notes. There might be more than one person who can benefit from seeing uncertainty in a new light.
Yeah, and I had to be quiet about it when I was doing it, of course, because I couldn't lean on my normal support system because they were all corporate, so I couldn't really tell them that I was doing this. So I had a few close friends and, of course, my coach that knew about it. But when I did decide to tell my parents, and I'm 51 now, so it was a few years ago, I remember my father going, oh, honey, just wait a few more years, put some more money in the bank, because he struggled financially for most of his life. So he was trying to keep me from doing that, but all it felt to me was, you'd rather I be unhappy than broke. And I think now I'd rather be broke than unhappy.
It's a big one. I think it's something that comes up in our next chapters a lot. We often, I watched a movie quite some time ago called The Shift, which was about Wayne Dyer, or Wayne Dyer starred in it, and it was his perspective, and it was about the shift from success to significance was one of the particular lines that he used, and it was talking about this, or explaining and showing this type of feeling, what becomes more important to us. And as we do, this is what I think next chapters have at the base of them, is that desire to follow our hearts. We bring our heads as well. We're not, I don't want to sound ageist here, but we're not young and foolish. We're older and willing, and we see the cost of compromising our heart over a long period of time, and I guess dulling down ourselves if we don't take these leaps. But you just hit the nail on the head there as well. This is why I think support circles are so important. There was people there in corporate land who didn't get it. It's like, why would you? And your dear father, same as mine. I remember he's a Kiwi, New Zealander, sorry. He's a shearer and a fencer by trade. So he shore sheep and put up fences on farms by trade, very much a hands-on guy. And he came and stayed with us in my old home a few years ago now, and I was doing a tele summit. And he kept roaming in and going, I just don't understand. Why are you doing this? How's this going to make you money? And was really, why? He just couldn't. I gently described and explained about growing audience and serving your audience with content that inspires, all the things that we talk about. But he was just like, this is so well, he didn't use these words, but this is so intangible. I just don't get it. So we need people around us who will tell us truths, but also encourage us to stretch so that we don't look back later and go, I wish I had.
Yeah. And just prior to me, like literally 3 weeks before I was to sign the lease on the complex that I was renting for the next 8 years, my father died. And I can remember being in that grief period going, really, is this the right time that I give up my well-paying job that's giving me 3 weeks off to deal with my dad's illness and his death? And is this really the time to strike out on my own and have no safety net? But I can remember this as clear as day, standing in the funeral home with my brother and everybody coming up and talking about the impact that my dad had on their lives. And I thought, what are people going to say about me if I stay where I am emotionally and in my career? Because it's going to make me negative. I know it will. And do I want them at my funeral going, man, she financed a mean Maserati, or do I want them telling people that love me how I changed their life? And but it was a serious sit down with myself going, okay, there's two extremes here that are hitting me in the face. And my mom was not as scared for me as my father was. So she's like, no, go for it, And I was worried about having to support her, but she's like, nope, don't worry about me. You just go chase your dreams. So you're right. Support circles are extremely necessary, I think, in every point in our life, but especially when you're about to design and then start writing your next chapter.
Yeah, that's a really good food for thought there. That I guess the contrast that you had with your dad with the fear of risk and your mum with the encouragement to live your dreams and putting the grief into the recipe as well. That must have been a really difficult time. Talk about take on something big at the most interesting times of our lives. Sometimes, we can't pick him, can we? Sometimes it just doesn't work that way.
No, we can't. But sometimes I think that if I look back on it now, I think there was other things going on at the same time that you could potentially look at it and going, universe, why are you piling on me? But when I look at it now, I think you were numbing me so that I couldn't think too much and think my way out of something. It was all feeling. So I'm not happy that he died and that everything else happened when it did, but I appreciate that it all happened at the same time, and it drove me where I needed to go.
And we can so often see that, can't we? We look back with what I refer to as hindsight, and you can see the connecting dots. You can see how the path was laid out. But we can't see it when we're in it. We've just got to take the next step and have faith that the next one will appear after that, and then the next one. We don't. I know that you and I have an interest in a fellow called Mike Dooley, which he talks of infinite possibilities, and this concept of that we create our futures. Manifestation is a part of what we do, but we have to take inspired action and have faith and trust that the next step's going to appear. If we've got it all laid out perfectly, then we're being pretty optimistic. I think we have to have flexible plans to move us forward and be ready to flex when unexpected things are thrown at us. And I did very much like your description of the universe was numbing me, so I couldn't think my way out of it. I had to feel my way through it. And that's a huge distinction. I've been told often I spend way too much time in my head. So the last 10 years I've been trying to focus more on what I feel, and that's definitely changing decisions that you make.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike Dooley, I hadn't read his stuff at the time that I was going through all of this, but now I just finished Manifesting Change, and the part where he's talking about playing the matrix. And he says, when you envision your future and pick a goal, it's better to be on the left-hand side of the matrix, which is more I want to be happy. Because if you're happy, everything else will fall into place, because you can't be happy if you have poor health, and you can't be, truly happy if you don't have enough income to live on. And that was where I was at that point, going, if I have to choose happy over broke, I'm not going to be happy if I'm not making some money, so I'll choose happy because the rest will come.
And that's that faith and trust piece. I think a huge part of our next chapter journeys is learning to trust ourselves, learning to trust our intuition, our gut. We back this up. I'm not saying that you just, sort of ride your unicorn through life. I mean, we need to back up the things that we're doing with good strategy and good tactics and a lot of your head does have to play, but I believe it needs to start in that place that you're talking of. And playing the matrix is, I've been exposed to that as well, and that concept of what's the end game? What are we after? And I'm going with happiness. I'm going with happiness,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we don't always know the path that's going to get us there, but if we start moving, options begin to show up. So, and it does take courage and bravery, but look where it gets us. So tell us at the moment, Karen, what's the business that you're running now? What was the leap into? I know what it is, but let our listeners know.
So for most of my career, for the last half of my career, I ran special projects. So I basically lived in meetings. And most people think meetings are a four-letter word, but in my mind, every time two people come together, there's an opportunity to change somebody's world. And meetings are that, people coming together. Whether we come together virtually like you and I are coming together now, or we do every 2 weeks in our masterminds, or when people come face-to-face most people would go to a hotel or a conference center and meet. What I did was create a creative conference center. I built one. I sketched it out on graph paper with really interesting names like large room, medium room, tiny room, nooks and crannies, and I gave it to an architect, and he drew up stuff that then we gave to a designer that I was probably about an hour before this call, and I wasn't planning on this. I was looking for some photographs, and I found the photographs of this empty space, and then I look out my office window and I see what it is now, and it really is infinite possibilities, because when you put something down and you have the right support system that will, when you said trust yourself, you have to trust yourself, but you put it well too. You don't just think something and go. You think something with yourself, and then you vet it with other people, support system who will give you fair feedback, constructive criticism, and encouragement. And that's what I got when I built this. Is I connected with a designer who connected me with a tech guy who connected me with someone else, and then together we put together this amazing 12,000 square foot conference center that's in a strip mall. So most people come in and it looks like anything else in a strip mall, bland brick on the outside, but I compare it to going through Alice's Looking Glass and ending up in Wonderland, because you come through that front door and people's jaws drop, because it's bright colors, it's comfortable furniture, it's everything that they need to support their meeting, and they're laughing and they're enjoying themselves, and they're meeting the objective for why they came here. And it's really cool to see people love meetings, and I could geek out on meetings all the time rather than people complaining about them. But that's what I built, was a 12,000 square foot conference center to help other people reach their dreams and goals, whether they be the organization or somebody new starting a business coming in and meeting with clients for the first time.
And I love the name of the business, which I'm going to reveal right now, which is Go Where Meetings Matter, which I just think is such a clever name, and it makes sense. And hearing, this is one of the things I love about Next Chapter businesses. Quite often, or 9 times out of 10, when we first leap into them, we're fueled by passion. We're fueled by something that we really believe in. That's something, the questions that I ask clients to answer all the time. What do you stand for? What do you believe? What do you want for your clients? What have you overcome? And you've overcome a lot of boring meetings by the sounds of things, by designing your new business. It's that enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is currency. If we're enthusiastic about what we do, we've got, and really believe genuinely, passionately in what we do, there's such a better opportunity of drawing people into our world. And I'm drawn in, and I will make sure that we put your website on the show notes page, because the photographs that I've seen of your space as well, yeah, they look completely different to the places that I used to have all my corporate meetings, and that's for sure.
Yeah, and it is so fun. I'll check in with hosts at around noon, say, how's it going? How's your meeting going? And they pull me aside and they go, my people are getting along. I'm like, no, but how's your meeting going? They're like, you don't get it. My people are getting along. I'm getting so much done because these people aren't fighting.
Environment does so much for us, doesn't it?
It does. It actually gives us subconscious clues on how we're expected to behave. And you've heard me talk about it in Mastermind. I have some really cool chairs, which I call the happy chairs, which if I put people in them, they start belly laughing. Everybody else around them starts belly laughing. And it's a secret weapon, because the best way to oxygenate a brain is to laugh. It then releases endorphins, and then people are more likely to get along. So they're less defensive when they go into a meeting. I'm not saying they aren't defensive. I'm saying they're less defensive.
Less defensive, yeah.
So,
there's an advantage there. Any advantage we can grab, especially if you're going into a meeting where you're discussing something that's controversial or that has division within the ranks, then a little bit of an endorphin like pop up in the happy chair makes sense to me.
yeah, and it works a lot. So it's really fun, and seeing people going, I'm not tired. I can go out after this, or I can actually cook dinner for my family. I'm like, you don't have to tell them that. You can go home and have them take care of you.
I love it, but a little bit of subterfuge goes a long way under those circumstances. Well,
Exactly.
it's wonderful to hear how you made that leap, and we both know that when businesses are first starting in those first couple of years, God, it's hard. It can be really, really hard. You know, we don't necessarily jump straight into profit. We don't necessarily have the cash flow or the flow of clients that we want. You know, it is difficult in the beginning. Sometimes you get a lucky break, but overall you need to be evolving and pivoting and listening to market feedback and making changes, and all sorts of things are happening in those first couple of years before the path broadens even more for us. And that's why I wanted to have these conversations about the support circles, because a lot of women who are in my community are at the beginning. There's a big chunk that are further down the line and they've made it through those first foothills, so to speak. But there's a lot of ladies who are starting out, and that's when I think, in particular, support circles are vital. So I've seen that they fall into 4 areas. Everyone's got a recipe. You know, the ingredients for each individual is, not surprisingly, quite individual, but they tend to fall into these 4 quadrants of physical. How do you take care of yourself physically? And I think you've just made me realize one that I haven't considered before, which is your physical environment. Your surroundings is a big important part as well. I'm learning something from every woman I speak to in this series, which is as it should be. So there's the physical, then there's the emotional and spiritual support, and then there is the community and connection part, and then there is the mentoring and the mindset side of things. Those 4 quadrants I've found really important to have support in each area. So I'd love to dive down and see what your circle of support looks like, even though it's quadrants. I guess it's a square, but God damn it, we're going to call it a circle. So let's look at each one of those areas for you, Karen. What happens with you, or how do you take care of yourself physically, be it your environment and the things that you do to take care of your body and soul?
I would say that's probably the quadrant that gets the least attention from me, having just still two and a half years in from quitting my job. That's the one that I have relied on my mastermind mates to remind me that I need,
and
as
we
you
do.
were telling me last night, that I need to take care of myself because I tend to push myself. And as you know, you don't see the outward signs that everybody else does. And I'm not talking about the bags under the eyes, but I'm talking about, hey, you're talking a mile a minute. You're not taking a breath. You need to just relax, go work out, go whatever. So what I've been doing with the help of my mastermind people is trying to get my social life going again, because that helps me take care of myself when I've got somebody to go do something with. So going for walks, going for bike rides, not as much fun on your own as it is with someone else. So I've tended to most recently build up my social circle, which interestingly enough has changed a lot since I left the corporate world, right? Because all of the people that I used to hang out with socially were corporate friends. And now it's turning into more entrepreneur friends or client friends.
Yeah, that's a big one, that. And actually, I have a good friend who has done the reverse at the moment. She's moved back into corporate world for a while. And we used to just be able to talk at any time of the day because we were masters of our own schedule. And that's changed enormously. And that was a big adjustment for both of us in terms of that relationship. I mean, that's sitting in the community connection quadrant, because we live far away from each other, so we couldn't go for a jog even if we wanted to. And I don't think we did. But it's that conversation that now has to be sort of corralled, so to speak. So I had to get used to that one. But yes, so your friends or the people that would come on the bike rides for you, I guess, have changed significantly. So bike rides, I'm gonna grill you here as your mastermind buddy as well. How
I know
else?
you're writing these down to come back to me.
How could you
in 2
tell?
weeks? Good.
Karen said on our call the other day. But on a serious note, there's physical things are different for each person. Like, I've often used my lack of gym bunniness as self-flagellation. I joined the gym, and guess what? I haven't been again. So it's
Yeah, I've
recognized.
exercised my wallet, but not my body.
That's exactly it. I get a lot of exercise, but yeah, just not of the
My
body.
wallet is in shape, let me tell you. It is one fine-looking wallet, but I'm with you. I sign up and then I think, well, cancel that membership. No, I'll start going to the classes. So it has been more bike rides for me, going for massages, which is kind of in between the physical self-care and the emotional self-care. Actually, it kind of rides but with the physical work I do now. So I went from being a corporate executive where I sat on a regular basis for meetings. I set my little timer every 25 minutes and I got up and did a couple laps around the office. But now because I'm the solo entrepreneur and have 2 part-time help, I'm schlepping the dishes, I'm restaging the furniture, I'm doing a lot of physical stuff that I didn't used to. So my chiropractor and I are getting on better terms again.
That's a good point. That's a good point there that you just made is when we're in corporate land, there's departments who do things. When we're in solo land or micro land, we are the departments that do things. Sales.
I am HR, accounting, everything but legal. I still have a lawyer, but and then I have this friend with an amazing pen that helps me out with marketing. You might have met her. She's in my mastermind. But yeah, you go from having not only an emotional and people as your support system, but hey, we need to put a new marketing piece out, or hey, we need to do this. Let's call that IT department to go fix that. No, when my computer died on Friday, it was me trying to diagnose it, figuring out how I'm going to get it fixed, dropping it off at Best Buy, picking it up, finding out that they lied. It really does work. But it's an entrepreneur does 90 more hats than they did before.
Yeah, we do.
And
sometimes that's physically exhausting, which is why we need this support in this area. So I love the fact that, yes, you're going for massages and recognizing that these quadrants, they do blend into each other. So yeah, I agree. A massage is every bit as emotional support as it is physical. But there's a chiropractor that's there. It's one of your practitioners that fits into this area. Is there any other specific things you can inspire us or just inform us with that become a part of your physical world and perhaps your environment too?
I wish, but like I said, this is the one where I am paying the least attention to myself. But that's kind of my MO, right? Do everything for everybody else. Do you know anybody like this? Do everything for everybody else and then put yourself last. So it's when you get home, yeah, I should go do something to move, but no, I'm going to zone out listening to a book or a piece of music and then go to sleep. So it's one I need to get better on, but I'm not asking you to hold me accountable just yet.
No, not at all. Not at all. This is about awareness, and one of the things that in episode 63, when I introduced this Circle of Support series, there's actually a mind mapper download, just a simple couple of pages where it's got the quadrants, and for you to become aware of where do I need to put a little more attention because I'm not taking care of myself in the way that I could. And this is not, I absolutely emphasize this, it's not about an opportunity to beat yourself up. Oh, I should be doing more of this. It's not that at all. It's shining the light of awareness, because if you are feeling exhausted or you are feeling that physically there is something missing, and it might be your diet, it might be lots of different things, but if there is a physical lack of energy, then it's giving you awareness that you need to have a look at that area. So it's an opportunity for self-care, not self-flagellation. So just wanting to make sure both you hear that message, but so does anybody else that's listening to this episode as well. So let's segue into the next type of area. We've already established that for both of us, a massage is definitely emotional support. But how do emotions and spirituality, how does that play out for you in terms of the way that it supports you? What do you have in place there, Madonna?
Meditation practice, which put heavy emphasis on practice. I notice the difference when I don't do it regularly, but that doesn't mean that I still do it regularly, because that's one thing, again, that will get pushed, even though I know it will make me feel better. But I really try, and luckily for me, I have this amazing conference center, which has a really cool room that's got leather sofas in that if nobody's renting it, I can tell Polly, who works for me, I'm going to go do a call for 15 minutes. Well, she doesn't know I'm calling the universe.
And they always answer.
I close the door and I put on the app Insight Timer and I meditate for 15 minutes. And it is amazing how great that feels. But it's like eating apples, right? I love the way apples taste, but I never think of grabbing them until I see them. So it's meditation for me is a big thing for my emotional and spiritual connection to the universe.
I love that recognition, and this is a great example of where we need to have self-compassion. It's with you saying that I notice the difference that it makes when I don't do it, but that still doesn't mean I do it all the time. I'm the same. Here in Sydney, we're in spring now, so it's warming up beautifully, and I've got my meditation mat sitting outside on the deck, and it's sitting outside on the deck, and it's sitting outside on the deck.
And you're not with it.
It's very lonely this week. I managed one session on that mat, and I've mentioned in earlier episodes, it's a practice for me as well because it's not something that comes easily. Sitting still, clearing my mind, yes, it's definitely a practice, which is why I rely more on the guided meditations. But like you, I do notice that when I do it regularly, when I manage to string a few days together and I follow that up with journaling, I feel a hell of a lot better. It's a really good way to start my day rather than picking up my phone as soon as the alarm goes off and seeing what's on the agenda. So I'm with you that it works, but we need to just be gentle with ourselves and bringing it in more regularly. So what else is around you in this area?
Well, for me, it's meditative drawing. I use the Zentangle method of drawing, and this is an interesting one for me because I enjoy doing it so much, but it relaxes me. I sometimes find I have to give myself permission to do it because I think of it only as fun versus it having a mental health benefit for me. And so I know you saw a lot of the top of my head on our mastermind call last night because when I got here to the office last night after consulting all day, I was just in a mood that I knew that I had to get it out. And the best way for me to get it out is meditative drawing, which I'm doing while we're on this call. But it really does relax me. And for me, it's got two benefits. It relaxes me and lets me just decompress, but it also allows me to focus. So when I have to do conference calls in my consulting business, it's a really great way for me to pay attention is to draw. And if I go to lectures or workshops, I take my pens and my tiles and I will draw and people will look at me and I've learned I have to explain. I'm not being rude. This is the way I focus. And I think they go, until I pick up and I can answer whatever question was asked or I can ask a question that's 3 layers deep in what they were just talking about because it really does help me focus. And I love the fact that I also end up with some really cool art.
Well, we're going to make sure that we put a link to Zentangle because when you first talked about it, I had no idea until I actually saw what you were doing. Then I could get it. And I love the fact that you're recognizing here, and this is a boundary thing that I think we can be quite hesitant to instill or install these boundaries. This is something that works for you. It doesn't detract from others. It's just different to what they're accustomed to seeing. You're not doodling. You're not like, writing your to-do list or your shopping list. You're very, very focused in there. But this is your, I guess, almost like that Alice in Wonderland doorway again that you mentioned before. It's your doorway into focus and flow. Yeah, so that's that, and you're allowing to bring that in because it works for you, and other people are just going to need to respect that this is one of the things that works for you. You're not encroaching on their world, you're just taking care of yours. I really salute that. That's great.
When I was still in the corporate world, I used it as well. I had to go on a 5-city tour with one of my clients, which was Maserati. So I got to listen to the 5 people speak every day for 5 days, the same stuff. So I told them ahead of time, I'm not ignoring you. This is the way I focus. And here's where I'm going to put a little gender bias in. Since I was the only woman on it, they're kind of like, sure. So we went to lunch, and we were in Jacksonville the day, and or maybe we were in Miami, and they said, what'd that Jacksonville dealer ask? And I pulled out my drawing, and I looked at it, and I said, well, it was right about here when I was drawing in the right-hand corner, and he said XYZ because he was concerned about, these other 2 things. And they looked at me, and they went, you're right. How did you get that from the drawing? I'm like, because I was I was focused on the drawing, and I kind of encoded it in my brain, but they just kind of assumed, even when I told them that, sure, that's just her way of ignoring us.
Oh, I love that visual connection. This is not, I want to give you an example here of something similar that's happened for me, but it's not Zentangle, though when you look at the walls, you think it was. In my marketing agency, and I actually bought an office in Chatswood, and I'm not there any longer, but even when I first stepped away from the agency and started mentoring, in my conference room, in my meeting room, I had a thing called idea paint on the walls. So it turned all of the walls. That's fantastic. I love it, and I miss this. So it turned the walls into whiteboards. And so when I'd bring a client in for one of my workshops where we'd really pull apart their business, reshape it, realign it, and put it all back together again with a plan that they walked out with, we'd be writing on the walls with texters, whiteboard texters. But so the ideas would flow right around them. They would surround them, and I would take photographs of those walls. And when I went back, when I was mentoring a person after the event for a time later, I'd pull out those snapshots of the walls. And it wasn't just that the words were there. When I was really listening to them and writing on the walls, because I was writing, I wasn't just talking, it seemed to capture more than just the words. And I could look at a phrase or think, now that was at that part of the day when we were talking about this. Mm-hmm. And everything else, it was like you had this key that unlocked all these other pieces that were happening at the time that weren't necessarily written on the wall. It was magic. I loved it.
Yeah, because it involved more than one sense. And for a lot of us, that just encodes it when you can then look at it and you remember, your whole body remembers.
Yes, that's exactly how it felt. It's like I was back in the room, and it would transport you back in time. I guess I use flip charts and things now, but I want idea paint. I want to paint a wall in my house.
That's why every one of my conference rooms has 3 walls of glass marker boards. So I was going to do the idea paint, but it would have cost me too much to get my walls commercially smooth enough that it would work.
Yeah, because you have to get it installed. It's not just, you don't just slap it on as paint. Yeah, it needs to be installed. Yeah. God, it stinks when they're first putting it in, but wow, it made a big difference.
But it does spark your creativity, which I think is what we all need for emotional health too.
Absolutely. I love that connection. Thank you for sharing that. That just brought back the memory for me as well. I'm feeling all excited about I'm going to start drawing when I do more of my mentoring calls. We'll both have our heads down in the next mastermind.
That's fine.
So
I actually do Zoom calls with friends for emotional support too, that we do Zoom calls and we're all drawing. So there's 3 or 4 of us on the Zoom call. We've got our cameras on, but we're all drawing and talking. So if anybody looked up, all they'd see is everybody else's head until somebody says, oh, show me what you're doing. And then it's showing the artwork and then we go back. But that's also an emotional support, having someone to create with, even if they're not physically in the space with you.
Absolutely. That's a brilliant. I see the recording of that one and see the creativity oozing from the pores. Also, the emotional side, that's so important. And for a lot of people, excuse me, spirituality plays a role in this quadrant and this area of support as well. It means different things to different people. So what's your concept of spirituality? Is there one that you subscribe to? Is it something that plays a big role in your life? How does it look for you?
Well, I was raised a Presbyterian, and we went to church when I was a child until, my mom worked on Sundays and my dad was Catholic, so he would pick us up from church until somebody said something to my mother, because he would take us to the gin mill afterwards, waiting for my mom to get off. And evidently I would be 5 years old running down the hall going, we going to the gin mill, Dad? And then they frowned on that for some reason. He didn't feed us alcohol. We got to sit in a booth and have a pop and potato chips, and my brother and I were really happy. But so I was raised Presbyterian, but I know, Angela, you knowing me will find this hard to believe, but I rebel.
No.
And I know. And I rebelled against the church system. So I believe in God, and it's very important to me, but I can't be happy in a church, because I always feel like somebody's too focused on the judgment part. So I have my own connection with God and the universe and spirituality through, I talk to him every day. I assume that he talks back, and I sometimes will say, okay, this is what I think your answer is based on that. If that's not the case, give me a sign right now. Nope, okay, let's go forward. But I I will go to church with my mom when
I'm smiling as you're talking because I wasn't raised in a religious household, and spirituality is something that came into me definitely later in life. But yeah, I carry my own little personal God in my hip pocket. We have a chat when necessary, when I'm faced with uncertainty. Yeah, the concept of pausing and just tapping into that power greater than myself.
Yep.
Another perspective. So yeah, it's an important part of my life as well. But you were that recognition that you can't be happy in a church, but you've got your own relationship that supports you. That's the important part. It's your interpretation of things.
So I'll go to, my mom has gotten more into the church as she's gotten older, and I'll go to church with her when I come home, and I support the way that she wants to do her spirituality. I never say, no, that's not right. But she also knows that I don't enjoy going to the church because of all of my perceived judgment going on. So we don't have any issues in that area, but we don't celebrate it in the same way.
And I think that's the core, isn't it? And this is another part of our next chapter expansion. It's prioritizing what works for us. It's not
Right.
that we're saying that your way of doing it is wrong. We're just saying this is the way that works for me. This is how I'm emotionally, spiritually supported, and it's working. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Well, let's take that turn into the next area, which is the concept of community and connection. So this, with some of the conversations I've had so far, this talks about things like the networking, the online communities as well as offline communities, because that connection is so very important. So what does community and connection look like for you?
Well, that was one of the biggest transitions for me, because like I said before, I had a huge community in the corporate world, and I saw them every day. I went into an office that had 70 people on my floor, and we had 15 floors in the building, and I knew people on every floor. So that community to me is there was always someone that I could go bounce an idea off of, that I could just shoot the bull with. And then when I started my own business, not only did I start it, I lived 25 miles away from where my office was in the corporate world, and now my business is 20 miles away from my home in the opposite direction. So I'm not physically near anyone that I used to know, and they all have much different backgrounds than the people I used to have, and they're all busy running their own businesses. So for me, I had to make a conscious effort to build a new community. So one of the things I wanted to do was build a community that was geographically near me, so that I could go, when I needed to, physically go see someone and get away. But then also because of the people I know, and I knew Liz from before, and she brought me the mastermind community. That was one of the best things to ever happen. And I think I fought her on it a little bit, going, what do I need this? Because I'd been introduced to masterminds before, or what people called masterminds before, and it really turned me off. But then when I saw what it could be, and what an amazing space, emotional and mental space it could be when it was done correctly, and then meeting, and I'm not blowing smoke up your skirt, because I know you're not probably wearing a skirt this morning.
Where's the webcam? Where's the webcam? Where are you?
But meeting amazing women like you and Carrie and Monica and Harmony, I mean, that we've masterminded with over the past 2 years, it is, I mean, first when Liz told me this was going to be every 2 weeks for 2 hours on a Tuesday night, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be painful. But now I find myself like Monday or Tuesday going, oh yeah, tonight's mastermind or tomorrow's mastermind, whatever way it is. And there's something about having a sacred, safe space with people who have gotten to know you that can recognize the subtle cues, right? Like you guys all recognized it last night, that I was extremely stressed, more stressed than I've been. And even the question I was asking wasn't what I needed to be asking. And you guys all gently took care of me. So that was a big part of my community. I only wish we all lived closer or got together more. got
Yeah,
together
me
at all.
too.
But that was a big change. I've also, like I said, tried to find some communities here because my work world completely changed from being a corporate executive to being an entrepreneur and having to figure all these things out for myself. So I went out and I looked for organizations to belong to that I thought would offer me the connection I needed, the peers that I was looking for. And I have to say it is really difficult to find geographically because you're limited, whereas you can find it a lot higher caliber virtually because you have the whole world to look at.
That's a really good point, that that we look for people who are on similar journeys as us so that we can experience these new learning curves together. And we also need to be stretched, so there's different types of communities that can do that for us. But that balance of local connection, local community, it doesn't always fulfill, and I guess we can't expect it to fulfill every need that we have. So we're actually really lucky. We can look for the local connection, but then we can expand into the global connection because of the beauty of the technology that we have. I think sometimes, I know I bemoan social media sometimes. It's sucking the life out of me. I'm spending too much time. But it's also the way in which I have met some of what I call my belief buddies, the women who are most important to me, and the ones that, conversations that we can have. And even you and I are on Facebook messaging sometimes, just little snippets, because we're in each other's world and we know that we can reach out. So I think that's the beauty. And if we can find that blend between the face-to-face, which to me is vital, like it really, it feeds me, it enriches me, it nourishes me to have the face-to-face contact. I cannot wait until we meet because I'm getting my butt over there, and the door's open here. But that, and it's why I put retreats into my own masterminds as much as possible, so that have that face-to-face connection. But aren't we so lucky because we've got our backyard, and our backyard is also expanded to encompass the whole world. It's the best of both.
Yeah, and one of the other communities I have is the Good Life Project community, and what I love about it is they have adult summer camp at the end of every summer. So it is a virtual community throughout the year where you're celebrating people's wins, supporting their challenges, but then you go to camp and you get just totally crazy.
I've seen the photos.
I mean, there's people running around in unicorn onesies. I mean, it is a place that is full of love and support. The first year I was there was it was in September, and my dad had died in August. And as I mentioned earlier, I had some other things happening. I was faced with potentially having cancer, so I had to have a hysterectomy, and I had to have it the week after camp. But camp was so full of love and hugs and connection that when I had the surgery, they kept waking me up afterwards going, "We need to know what your pain level is." And I'm like, "A 2." And I could hear him going, "It shouldn't be a 2. It should be much higher. Why is her pain not much higher?" I'm like, "Because I had a really good week last week and I had lots of hugs. Let me sleep." But I truly do believe it was the connections and the love and the support I got from that community physically that helped me through the surgery.
I've got absolutely no doubt that that's definitely it as well. That love, that if we're open to receiving it, that can carry us through so much, can't it?
Yes, it can.
Yeah, I've heard so many things about camp. It looks awesome. And I love that concept, how you just described it there, that we're in an online community for much of the year, but then we have this opportunity to get together, which is so full of love and support. I mean, I have a large online community, a growing, I should say, online community, which is the Your Next Chapter Facebook group. Obviously, it's one of the easiest way for us to connect. So many of us are on Facebook. But that desire, in the last couple of years, or going back a couple of years, I used to run the Your Next Chapter live.
And yeah, you might have sparked something in me there. So perhaps that might have to be brought back out again, because it's so true. Meeting people in the flesh that you've only spoken to online, be it through Facebook or on Zoom or Skype or whatever, there's nothing quite like meeting them in person. And I'll just pop it in here. It'll be in the notes as well. But if you, my lovely listener, if you're craving some online connection with like-minded people who are on this next chapter journey, you're very, very welcome to cross into this community I'm talking about. If you just go to my website, angelarasmus.com/community, then you'll find the portal, the Alice in Wonderland portal that will take you through the magical land. And we'd love to meet you there. Well, so this part here that we're talking about with the community and connection, it does, as with all parts of the circle of support, there's this segue, there's this blend into the next area, which is the mentoring and the mindset side of things. So I know we've started to talk about mastermind. So let's talk about how you do how you do take care of your mindset and the mentoring and the masterminding, the roles that it plays in your world as an entrepreneur and a woman.
Well, I think
just
as
a little
woman,
question. Just a little question.
I'll start with the woman part first. I think as women, we're naturally more curious, or we follow up more on our curiosity. I could be wrong. There might be a man that would disagree with that, but I think we're always hungry for learning. As a general, not every single person, but so I am always trying to consume information and learn new skills and do that. And I've limited my mentors. I don't know if it's been purposely or not, or if I just don't consider some people my mentors. But I had a couple in the corporate world that were kind of interesting, because when I first met them, I was intimidated and didn't like them, and they turned out to be some of the best mentors I ever had. In my new life, the coach that I signed up with was a great mentor, Jennifer Bailey. She helped me realize that I could face risk and make my own choices. And I don't really know, I know we're going back to masterminds, but I really don't know where I'd be without that mastermind as mentorship, because I have 3 amazing women as my co-masterminders that come from completely different backgrounds. And we have a coach that is completely different than any of us. But I mean, well, her work's been Oscar nominated. She has an Emmy. I mean, nobody in her group does that, so yet. But I love the diversity of not only opinions, but viewpoints. But it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work if we weren't, like I said before, a safe, sacred space. So you can't, I've been in groups that try and mastermind and put you in a different mastermind for one day every quarter. And I don't feel safe sharing what I need to share in order to get the right feedback. Because we built that up, right? It wasn't there the first few meetings that we had together, but we peeled those onions and we shared it, and so now it can come in and basically lay anything out. But I've realized along my career that mentoring is a much closer relationship if you want it to be effective and productive than people perceive it to be. People are like, oh yeah, I want you to be my mentor. Well, there's got to be a connection for me to feel invested to be your mentor. You've got to have a connection and be invested in me to be the mentor I want you to be. And I think too many times it gets thrown around as buzzwords.
Yeah, I agree there.
And as a woman, I don't always look for women mentors, but to tell you the truth, I don't look at, I I don't look at the gender of my mentors. I look at what they have to offer and what I can offer back, because a mentor-mentee relationship is never one way.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's how I feel as well. And it's certainly the concept of giving as well as receiving. I mean, that's something that when I first came into a mastermind, and I guess I don't know what I thought a mastermind was. I really didn't at first. But when it was presented to me, because I actually went through the mastermind training with Liz Scully, that's who came into the... Yeah, because I knew that I wanted to work with women in groups. And that was a very personal motivation, because just briefly, I'm in the recovery movement, and as a big part of that is helping others. It's helping others to achieve, their lifestyle goals. And I saw the power, the absolute power in these small groups of people who were very open, who were willing to share, who would receive feedback but would give it so generously as well. And I saw that rather than just listening to the one person up the front of the room, so to speak, training or teaching, you learned as much from the person beside you as you did from the person leading the group. And that's the part that really inspired me and thought, I want more of this in my world. I call myself a mentor, a business mentor, because I guess of the background, the experience, the fact that I've been in business since 2003, et cetera, but the one-on-one work, although I love it, and it is very important to have when you've got specific things to move through, the group dynamic, if it's well curated, can have massive benefits. And you've just hit them on the head. It's that safety. Like we weren't cagey in our mastermind in the first few weeks, but we didn't know each other. So how much will I reveal when I don't know you? And as that trust is built up, and I understand you, and I understand your business, and I understand the goals of what it is you're trying to achieve, I can make much more of a contribution, a valuable contribution to you and you to me. And that's where I think that emotional connection, see, all the quadrants all relate, they all hang together, but that emotional connection, I underestimated how important that was, in addition to the strategic and marketing insights and advice and strategies, that I'm gifted in that mentoring environment. I underestimated that emotional connection, how important it was.
Yeah, because without that emotional connection, I don't necessarily trust to the extent that I should the information you're giving me. Because exactly. I feel that you're just spewing information, not sharing what I need to hear. You're just talking to talk, whereas I know in our mastermind, when people are offering, they're really offering what they think will help me. And to tell you the truth, when I can't make a mastermind, I feel more guilty that I'm not going to be there to support you and the other women than I feel bummed that I'm not going to get served.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? That's the change. That's the change that happens. Because I have the same feeling, though I try my darndest to make every call, because there's so much that I get out of it. And I absolutely credit the transformation and the movement and the expansion of my business in the last 2 years to being in a group that's helped me stay on the path, even when I got wobbly.
Yeah. And that's why I'll go back if I miss them and listen to the recordings and then try and shoot you or Carrie or Harmony something off saying, hey, I listened to this. Here's my 2 cents. Sorry I wasn't there live, kind of thing. Because to me, I get as much of an emotional boost out of being able to help someone as being helped.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, isn't it? For sure.
Yeah, it is. Because I remember that was one of my fears joining in too, was what am I going to have to offer these women?
That is so funny. That is, it's one of the things when I open my own mastermind circles and I bring women together, because that's the way that's the core of my business now, is that's one of the reassurances you need to give very much up front. The conversations I have with people before they join a circle to make sure it is a good fit for them is that, what am I going to have to contribute? I'm not a marketer, or I'm not a this or a that. And yet, okay, I'm lucky or fortunate that I have those marketing skills. And that's one of the things that I very much bring to the circle that I'm a part of and that I facilitate. But our contribution goes way beyond just our skill base and our experience. That it's the observations and the being able to respond to someone with a fresh perspective, because we're not, you're not embodied in the business, so that you've got that outside of you. So that reassuring someone that you've got so much to contribute and so much to receive, but enormous amounts to contribute. And we never believe it at first, do we?
No, we don't. And then I hear, oh, that was good. Let me write that down. And then I'm thinking, ooh, I was pretty good today. That's why you'll hear me say, okay, I have my one good one. Sorry, your other guys are out of luck.
That's hilarious. So if you were considering or talking to our listeners and explaining what you think is the thing that tips you over the edge into a mastermind over other mentoring and mindset support, what would you say that is?
I would say the two things that tip me over are, one, the quality of the facilitator. I would never do a mastermind again that wasn't facilitated, because there's always one person that is, their whole job is just to make sure that they're watching you the whole time and helping you be present and get what you need and give what you can. So I would definitely say it was the fact that it was facilitated, because my first exposure was not. It was participant-led, and that didn't go well. And the second one is the quality of the women and understanding, again, having that diverse perspective, the diverse experiences that they're pulling from, and being open to it is just one of those, it now is, okay, is Angela signing up? Okay, yeah, I'm signing up.
You're too sweet, darling.
But again, because you're my safe space, and knowing that going into a brand new mastermind, I would have to trust, and I would trust the facilitator to put me in a space that puts me with amazing women. But to me, having that diverse perspective, and not somebody who's going on a similar journey, but not the exact same one. Like, oh, I came out of a large, a Fortune 100 company, and now I'm starting my own conference center. No, I don't want somebody just like me. I want somebody who's had a similar path, that is a portion of the similar path, right? So, because that diversity is what brings all the magic.
That diversity is the strength, for sure. Yep, well, I think it's pretty obvious. We enjoy masterminding with each other, and we're looking forward to 2018, that is for sure.
Yeah.
And as we're coming full circle on this conversation, I think that is the core. It's the diversity that we have within our support circle. We've touched on the physical side, the emotional, the spiritual, the community and connection, the mentoring, masterminding, the mindset work that gives to us, that gives us that confidence and that to keep on moving forward, even when, like when you came to the call yesterday, life had thrown some pretty stressy curveballs, and we need to move through those. And having a community, having connection to help us through those sticky patches is just, what do they say on the MasterCard advertisements? Priceless. It's utterly priceless to know that there's people there that are going to lift you up when you've fallen, or to celebrate with you when you've got something to celebrate. It's so important. So that diversity of your support circle, of our support circles, is what keeps us buoyant when life does throw those curveballs. It's so important to us. So what would you say, my darling, to leave as parting thoughts to someone who perhaps has printed out their mind map, which they can go back to episode 63, find that one, and they've looked at their support circle and gone, I'm starting a bit from scratch here. What do you think is the most important place to start if you're thinking of those quadrants, just to start to nurture yourself at the moment? Where would you say one should start?
And we've talked about this. I see the quadrants as kind of like a little Venn diagram where they kind of overlap. And to me, it would be community and the emotional support. And, well, to me, it's a mastermind, right? Because it's that safe space of people that can support you in multiple places. So if you can find a community that provides a mirror for you emotionally, and helps you think through some of the next chapter execution steps, that's the one. Is, can you find somebody that's going to be in that little slip that combines the two, because then they're likely going to be able to give you a connection to people in the next circle over. So your quadrants, I'm making circles that kind of connect. So I would say it's that community that, and whether it overlaps with the emotional support or it overlaps with the mentoring, but start with that community, because that community is going to be able to make connections to support resources in every other one of those quadrants.
Very, very wise counsel. And I think it goes without saying that, as we're finishing this conversation, I am extremely grateful to the universe, to Liz, to everything else that put us in community together, because it certainly enriches my next chapter journey. And I really, really, really appreciate you.
Right back at you, kid.
Kid, I've been called kid in ages. I'm going to feel young and bouncy all day. Well, thank you so much. Sorry, darling, I've interrupted.
No, I was just going to say, it's you make me bounce after every call. So there's nothing like a safe space that supports you and celebrates you, even when you don't feel like there's something to celebrate, but they make you see it. So thank you for that.
You're most welcome. It's a great feeling. And thank you for making the time today. And looking forward to seeing the Zen Tangle card that I know you're working on. Perhaps we can put that in the show notes as well. And so you can actually see what the Zen Tangle stuff is all about, because it's pretty fascinating. Well, I will see you in a couple of weeks on our next call. So have a wonderful, what is it for you? It's evening. It's daytime here. So have a wonderful evening, my darling.
You too. Have a great day.
Thank you. And my lovely listener, that was just one of those conversations that, well, I hope fills you up from the inside. So much wisdom, so much insight, so much vulnerability and openness, which are the hallmarks of the women that I interview on the Your Next Chapter podcast. I've had this described as, it's like I just grabbed a cup of tea and sat down right beside you and listened in. And I hope that's how you feel as well. It's that inclusiveness that I really, really want to create in this small online community that you're a part of right now. But if you want to take that one step further, I'll remind you that you're most welcome to come into the Next Chapter community, which is that private Facebook group where there is a whole host of women who are also on this journey of trust, of expansion, of business development and personal development, because the two go so hand in hand. So just come to angelaraspas.com/community and you'll find us there. And of course, we have been talking about masterminding, which is my own circle of support. It plays such an important role in me as a business owner and as a woman developing in her next chapter. And that's why support circles, what I call next chapter circles, masterminds, are a huge part of the way in which I support my own clients. It may be a good fit for you if you're craving both community, that open-hearted feedback in a safe space, but also very strong strategic and marketing direction, because, hey, that's my background. I'm a marketer through and through, and I'd love to help you grow your business. So if it feels like something you'd like to explore, you can go and read more about it. Again, angelaraspas.com/circle, and you'll see what they're all about. It'll take you through what's involved in a Next Chapter Mastermind, and there's lots of feedback there from lovely ladies who have been trusting me to walk this journey with them for the last couple of years. And if it resonates with you, I would love to have a conversation and see if I can join your support team in 2018. But just for now, go and look at your own circle of support. Where can you bring more in to nourish and to grow you as a woman in her next chapter who's stepping into new possibilities? So until our next episode, take care. I look forward to talking with you again really soon.
Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspas.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.